All right, so I got to rant about something real quick. Recently, the other day, I was browsing Twitter, like I do, and I came across a post by Limited Run Games, everyone's favorite retro community preservationists, if you can even call them that. And they made a post saying that they were releasing a physical release of Glover for the Nintendo Switch. Naturally, myself, a huge fan of the series, although my recent appearance on the UltraGameBros is contrary to that.
You know what's funny? I'm only really cozy for Atlantis, which is the first world. Cause Carnival is awful. Carnival sucks.
So I went ahead and I bought
Yes!
Glover for the Nintendo Switch from Limited Run Games. Naturally, with every other Limited Run Games product you order from them, you have to wait for several months while the thing is made for you and it arrives. So, much to my surprise, when it does arrive, single handedly, this has to be probably the worst box art I think I've ever seen on any game ever. And that's saying something because Glover itself it's a fine game. I think it's fine. I'm a longtime fan of it. The travesty of this box art needs to be talked about, honestly. Just kind of going from kind of top to bottom, left to right here. I'll throw comparison images up on the screen really quick. Uh, the one thing I got to start out with is the fact that they just completely ruined one entire aspect of the original box art, which was the fact that the volcano on the box has the visage of Cross Stitch, the game's main villain, in the volcano smoke. So it gives you kind of that eerie sense of someone's watching you constantly. Uh, on the refreshed box art, it absolutely looks like they took that render, that smoky visage render, put it through Adobe's AI processing, which again, another example of AI and shitifying everything it ever touches, and extended the image out. And look for yourselves. They completely ruined the top half of that part of the image because it just simply duplicated what it was looking at before. So you now have Cross Stitch, and then above that you have Cross Stitch's inbred cousin. It just looks so just murky and terrible, and it completely ruins the original aesthetic. Not only that, if you look really close at some of the other aspects of this box, for instance, the volcano itself, the big threatening honeybee in front of it, and the castle itself. The castle is the most egregious of this, of what I call that they just took the original renders from the box art, slapped it into Photoshop, blew it up to scale, and it just, you can absolutely tell that it's just scaled up and it just looks awful. The castle itself just looks like a gritty, just deep fried JPEG mess. I absolutely hate it. Not only that, they took the bumblebee that on the original box art is off to the side of the volcano. They took that bumblebee, they just took as if they took it from Photoshop and then slapped it in front of the volcano because they
Bruh.
clearly didn't have enough room on this box to work with. So they slapped it in front of the volcano. But if you look at their wings, you can clearly see that they didn't even give a damn about any kind of color correction with this and just took the color as it was. You can clearly see the blue of the sky behind the wings of this bee, and it just completely covers over the volcano to the point where you just can easily tell that this was just photoshopped poorly. And not only that, it's been scaled to hell in all different ways. The volcano is too small, the bee is too big. It's just a mess visually. And then additionally, underneath that, you see the treasure chest with his mouth open. That's fine. On the Nintendo 64 box art, you can barely see him. He's covered over by the red gradient that was on the right hand side of every box. You can still really tell if you zoom in close enough that it is a little bit pixelated. That's not as bad. The worst, obviously, is still the castle and then the volcano and the bee. I also don't understand what's happening in the lower right hand part of this box art. There's just nothing going on visually. There is just empty grass. They could have done something over there. They could have put something new, but instead they just decided to bastardize the original box art and completely just slap what they wanted where they wanted, and just did not care at all. It even shows like with the main text of Glover itself, right? They I'm torn with this part of it, because on one hand it looks like that they clearly just ripped it from Photoshop, which is likely what they did. But on the other hand, if you look at Glover above him, he just looks uncanny in some way. I don't know if it's because he's turned differently or what have you. There is just nothing behind those eyes looking at you from the box. Whereas, like, on the Nintendo 64 box, he still looks like a little bit cheery. On the Nintendo Switch box art, he looks out to lunch. There's nothing there behind those eyes. I'm still torn whether or not they just ripped it from the original box and then kind of cheekily edited it, or if they just like did the lowest possible effort Blender render of this, made it, and then said, "Oh yeah, no, that's good, that's perfect." I honestly can't forgive this, and it's to the point where I'm like looking at this box art. I'm gonna get to the back in a second, but it's to the point of looking at this box art, and I don't even want to play this. I don't even want to open this and play this game. I kind of just want to leave it sealed as is, because I know it's going to be a terrible port, because if you look at the Steam review for the Steam release of this game, that's still sitting at mixed. And that was one of the big reasons why I was very scared to actually order this, because I knew it was just going to be another generic port of both the Nintendo 64 and PlayStation 1 releases of this game. And they weren't going to be very well done, and it was just going to be awful. Anyway, let's talk about the back really quick. Even the back side of these boxes is very telling that this is the lowest possible effort. Because if you look, at least for all of the different in-game renders that they show in the back, there's 5 different in-game render images that they've used. 4 of those 5 are from the PlayStation version. Do you want to know how I know that? It's because of the UI. If you look at the UI elements, those are clearly the PlayStation 1 elements, and then they just have one all the way in the corner for the Nintendo 64 version. I don't know. Maybe they're trying to subtly tell you that the PlayStation 1 port is better than the N64 port version. I don't know. I wouldn't know. I haven't played this. But it's just horribly unbalanced in terms of showing which version, and it makes me a little sad. And even so, what is this render of Cross Stitch they have? He looks like a fucking like knockoff Wario down in the corner, mid laugh. They literally just took a frame from the opening cutscene, took him laughing, and just was like, "All right, that's it. That's Cross Stitch. Cut print. That's it." And then this render of Glover. The render of Glover is fine, but the bouncing ball is way too small. It looks like the size of his hand. That's not even. I get like sure, they have to fit elements in there, but I don't know. They could have did a little bit more effort, or kept with the original render of the N64 version and just had him on his ball. That would have been perfectly fine. They didn't have to have him doing this crazy dive kick maneuver, because that's not even in game. I prefer the back of the N64 box because they give you just so much more details on the back. To the credit, that's how the industry is nowadays. Like, it's very... If you're looking at the back of your game case, you've already purchased the game at that point, so it doesn't even matter. But the back of the N64 box just... It sings the game's praises, which, credit where credit is due. The game does deserve some praise. I don't know, man. I'm terrified. I don't want to open this and play it. I'd much rather, honestly, just throw this game in an emulator and just emulate, because I just know it's going to be at least better quality than what this trash is going to be. And I'm sorry to say, but more on the fact that Limited Run made this. Shame on you. You took a perfectly good box art and just bastardized it with the lowest effort possible. I'm sorry. Your box art person needs to be fired. That's all I can say, is if this is their acceptable work, that's pitiful. And I get you make $1 billion every year off of people that are buying collector's editions and physical releases of games. I get that. But at the same time, please, just can you put in a little bit more effort? Before this, I bought a couple of the Doom releases as well as Chex Quest, and I thought those were pretty solid packages all around. Like, all of the collector's edition items are really well done and really well built and made. But just this release alone is just pitiful. I'm sorry. It's just not good. As a longtime fan of Glover, and also a longtime opponent of Glover after finally playing through the game in its entirety, I'm just sad. They took something that could have been really good and just almost ruined it. I mean, that's really all I've got for this rant here. I just wanted to rant really quick about the box art and how terrible I think it is. Um, so, you know, that's it.